We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
I'm back. That still has a nice beat to it. Still seated twerking to bounce. New year, and that song still has a vibe in 2025. Also, it's time for a new intro. I am in with a podcast change. I added the F.A.A.F.O to it, but I'm back with the same formula that has allowed me to be successful in the past. I've set realistic intention. I plan on being present and following through, but I still intend to remain petty and hold grudges. Not all intentions need to be positive. Also, I will be unengaged and unbothered by people and things in my life that do not serve me. That means parasitic people, unsolicited judgments, biased newspapers, and mainstream banks. I will not apologize for maintaining my mental peace. Happy and unbothered and at peace because I'm at unbothered. All day, every day, being unbothered is my way. Join me. Sunday should be for quiet contemplation, meditation, and preparation for the upcoming week. Or if you live in the South, it could just be a day you go to the gun range to hone your bullseye capabilities because people Christ. Furthermore, it should be used for other things, not cleaning, not a job, and definitely not recording a podcast. That has to be reserved for during the week, after hours, or on Saturday. I started or used initially Sun Tzu's The Art of War back in May 12th exactly, then I've been repeating it since, as a haha moment for this current crooked weave and just all out crooked and kind of stupid administration. How that administration's been left on red by the Chinese government, and which I think is freaking hilarious to think about this, where they play President Obama's speeches. Every time anything is mentioned in this current administration, it is the Democrats' fault, it's Obama's fault, it's the Clintons' fault. They orchestrated him linking himself up with the pedophile, this is Epstein, and basically luring women to that Mar-a-Lago estate, allegedly, and where he possibly and probably got his former hoe of a wife, current wife, but I digress. I look to Sun Tzu because I know they basically only took snippets out. They could have had AI create the jumbled up policy or only gotten just bullet points. But I keep coming back to it because my approach, or some of what I'm learning as an approach to life currently was spoken about a little Chinese dude 2,500 years ago. Even just for haha moments and knowing about your enemy and knowing that life shouldn't be warlike, but it is. And if you're going to enter into your new age or just a different age, especially if you have to pivot because of business, what did he write about this, especially in The Art of War? His principles that led armies back in the day on ancient Chinese battlegrounds are applicable in boardrooms, marketing departments, and startup in my big 21st century. How can it be like 2,000 years? Actually, when I think about it, we're at now he was way into the BC, and he was kicking the knowledge that's still applicable 2,500 years later, which I think is remarkable. How can you actually subdue the enemy without fighting? You plan. Hence, to fight and conquer in all your battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. It's all about what that old goofy man used to say on Storage Wars: strategic planning. If it's not, it should not be to outsell your competitor. You create a market position so strong that direct, costly confrontation becomes unnecessary. The she. This is believed to be the victorious strategist seeks battle after the victory has been won. You conduct exhaustive market research. You understand your customers' needs better than anybody else, and you build a robust business plan. And then before you launch the product or enter a new market, you've already done the fighting in your spreadsheets, in your focus groups, and in your strategic sessions. A victory on paper through careful planning is the first step to a victory in the market. And this is contraindicated to how I'm actually learning in the research of my meme coin. It's so easy to basically unleash a new meme coin without a whole bunch of planning. Is once it is launched, how do you build the liquidity pool? What is a liquidity pool? How do you go viral? How do you stay competitive? How do you get in front of the institutional investors that can actually cause and support your type of coin? Coming up with more than a vision and a name. Creating the white paper and creating the buzz for the coin. And how can you outmaneuver? How can you convince people that it's not a necessarily meme coin? It actually is truly on the level of the Dogecoin and other stable coins. How you're not going to pull the rug out from your investors. You get them to pump value into the coin, and then you basically snatch all of the value from the coin. Now, look at the other meme coins that this is actually currently having to. And why I believe, case in point, is the chump coin. You can't tell me that's not going to be a pump and dump rug pull just waiting to happen. That's why I think people are, meaning the Fed and other people in finance, are looking what the history of that company and the shenanigans that they have done for over 50 years. All of the bankruptcies, how could you still file for bankruptcy in most businesses that have bared your name and you still say you're a billionaire? Okay, son. Okay. There's some shenanigans going on in the spreadsheets and a lot of money that is being siphoned off, and but nobody's bills are being paid. Your lifestyle is being supported by smoke and mirrors. But I digress. I want to be more than that, and I want to do it legally because there are people that are willing to pull the rug out from underneath me, that are willing basically to cut me off from any type of financial success just because they believe that someone that looks like me and sounds like me doesn't deserve it. But by meticulous preparation, and I basically define my position, nothing can stop me. And I have to believe that. In the midst of chaos, there's always opportunity. You have to be able to adapt. You can't run away at the first sign of volatility. You look for opportunity in that volatility. And basically, according to Sun Tzu, according to that, your enemy's formation, other competition, etc., you adjust your own. Water, meaning us, shapes its course according to the nature of the ground over which it flows. The soldier works out his victory in relation to whom he's facing. You read the terrain, you pivot with purpose, and you know your enemy and you as you know yourself. And this is just a fundamental principle in this intelligence. If you know the enemy just as you know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself, but not your enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Know yourself. It's kind of like a SWOT analysis they use all the time in corporate. What are the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threat within your own market? This basically is a way for you to basically know not only yourself, but also have a list of all of those things for your enemy. You got to know, you have to be self-aware. You got to know your own market, and you also need to move based on strategy. If you know yourself and your enemy, you can anticipate. Like also in a chess game, you anticipate, and I think, didn't the Chinese basically, or a type of chess was developed by the Chinese? In chess, what I believe, because I don't know how to play chess, you always have to be 2, maybe 3 steps ahead and be able to anticipate whoever you're playing against move. Based on how they move in their first few moves, you can anticipate your moves to counteract their moves. And I think it's dope. It's a dope way to approach business. If you are, and I am, serious about being able to have my money work for me and work smarter, not harder, I have to know what, if I'm going to move and have other streams of incomes in several different markets, I'm going to have to know who I'm dealing with in those markets. Crypto's a little bit harder because a lot of the enemies are a little bit fluid and ephemeral, but I still have to be able to move and adjust, but have a basic to what I want to do in this market, not just to make a whole bunch of money, which is great. But at the same time, how am I going to make that much money and keep the robbers away and be able to compete against other hundreds of thousands of other coins? It's possible. I just have to have the guts to be able to do it and also not lose a whole bunch of money, because nobody ain't got time for that. We're in about streams of income now, not of losses. And if you keep that in mind, how can you actually make a whole bunch of money minimize your losses, and also minimize your exposure to risk. I think it's a very formidable balancing act, but one of, if you want to strategize like Sun Tzu actually teach you, it's completely possible. And I firmly believe that. This crypto game is not for the faint of heart. You have to be able to plan, strategize, pivot when necessary, and be able to hold on to your hat without losing your shirt. And whatever opportunity presents itself, being prepared to actually benefit from that opportunity. You got to have a clear head and insight and being able to process on the fly. If you can't do those things, then this game is not for you. My apologies to Henry Mancini, but a riff on the Pink Panther theme is in alignment with a podcast segment dedicated to a fictional PI and all about true crime, or fictional crime in this case. Don't you think? Some of these people I just can't make up. Y'all just be tripping. I have come late to crypto. I'm always looking for different mechanisms to increase or just different streams of income. And I created my own crypto coin, Afro Druids, recently. I created a token sale, and I can truly say that I have not sold a coin or a token, but I digress. I have a lot to learn about crypto. I'm learning more about strategizing and creating a plan to make it attractive so it can get the attention and the financial backing for it to be successful. But there are people like Mr. Zimbardi from North Georgia that are putting the South on the map for other reasons. Ed Lombardi is behind what is called ineffectively the crypto program, that according to federal regulators was anything but program for success. In a complaint filed just this week in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Georgia, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission didn't even know the CFTC existed. It laid out a stark accusation against Mr. Lombardi. From roughly early 2024, even back into 2023, the scheme came crashing down. This guy operated what was called the crypto program. He promised that he promised to light up the dollar signs in your eyes. He allegedly solicited millions from investors, promising them astronomical and, more importantly, guaranteed returns. This smacks of a Madoff basis of a Madoff Ponzi scheme, but is fueled by crypto. Just think about it. In the volatile world of crypto, where prices can swing 20% in a single day, actually recently in a single minute, the word guaranteed should be a massive red flag. And that's what I'm going to probably call this. Crypto red flags in 2025. He alleged, Zimbardi that is, allegedly told potential clients that his program used a proprietary high-speed trading but powered by AI to execute thousands of profitable trades per day. I can see how he basically got half of the story right. There are bots in things like Telegram and Maestro that can actually aid in crypto trading, but only after people know about it and if you have liquidity. Enter in the scam. It is completely high risk. You can get the rug pulled from under you, or somebody can swoop in and steal all your shit. He said it was risk-free, zero chance of loss, and he was offering a golden ticket in a market known for its risk. All of those things is counterintuitive to the reality of crypto and crypto trading. He attracted investors from all walks of life, retirees looking to bolster their savings, young professionals hoping to get in on the crypto boom. He presented them with a sophisticated looking but ultimately fake performance statement showing their accounts steadily growing. Week after week, month after month, the numbers went up. It looked like he had cracked the code. But then it all came crashing down because it became apparent when he basically probably started missing those payments, and then when the feds rolled in, or in this case, the state rolled in. According to the complaint, there was no sophisticated trading bot. That's what I had mentioned. Maestro and Telegram, they're actually bots that are basically that can execute these trades, but they warn you that they are risky and you can lose your shirt. He had basically said he created a bot that can execute these high risk trades and you ain't gonna lose your money. Completely false. There was no high-speed AI-powered strategy. In fact, regulators allege that there were very little, if any, actual trading took place at all. That means these people were basically transferring money into this dude's wallet, and he was probably just stealing from them. Ain't no trading, child. So where did the millions of dollars go? If the allegations are true, it's a story as old as the scams themselves. He basically is accused of misappropriating investor funds for personal use. The lavish cars, vacations, real estate, and other personal extravagance. All this shit is in his name. The $3 millions and millions of dollars that he's raking in, he's basically using to fund his lavish lifestyle. And he needs to keep the scam going by encouraging other investors to put in more money or to lure in new investors. It's a Ponzi scheme through and through. It's a delicate house of cards, and once the new money dries up, the whole structure collapses. I'm glad they got to it before, because this could have been in the billions, but he was bilking just average Joe Smo, and they had not only limited funds, but limited access to more people with also limited funds. And then when everybody started losing money, again, when average Joe Smo started losing money and not getting any money, that's when the regulators come in. Somebody probably that have invested their whole life savings or retirement, when they got sick of it and they weren't no longer getting any money or paybacks, that's when they called the feds. But then it's also too late, because any money that they have received from ill-gotten gains, I'm wondering if any of them know about clawback. Then that's when the CFTC charged Zimbardi with violating federal law, especially the Commodity Exchange Act and Georgia state law. So they got him on federal as well as state. The charges were serious: fraudulent solicitation and misappropriation of funds, and they accused him of lying to investors to get their money and then stealing the money for his own benefit. So, what are they seeking? This is the CFTC. They want restitution. They want the people scratch back. How much did you defraud the investors? And then they want not only how much did you defraud them, but the disengorgement of ill-gotten gains. That means Zimbardi would have to pay back every dollar he allegedly made from the scheme. And thirdly, they're seeking a hefty civil monetary penalty as punishment for the violations. And they're also asking for permanently, he will not be allowed to trade in commodity markets and from registering with the CFTC ever again. Essentially, they want him kicked out of the industry for good. This case is really early in its early stages. I basically heard about it day before yesterday when I was scanning. You know how you get those pop-up news flashes on Google? And I basically clicked on it and I was like, oh, here we go. The line item for this section of the show, and also inspiration of my bonus clip of my hyper realistic video I'm going to create for YouTube. But there are just so many red flags all over this case that people basically should pay attention to. And then I said when somebody reached out to me online, just at random on YouTube, both YouTube, to help them probably steal somebody's money, and then on TikTok, that wanted me to basically work with them in a crypto-like program so he could scam me out of my money by me executing the same trades that they're allegedly executing, which the more I think about it was just such a scam. You know, we in lockstep executing the same trades, but I'm executing those trades on probably meme coins that they actually control, and that if I use my money to execute these trades, the only person that's going to be benefiting is that fool. No reputable financial advisor or crypto trader is going to reach out to you just at random on Reddit or on TikTok. It doesn't happen that way. You got to go viral on those platforms, but no, they're not going to reach out to you at random because that's sus. But there are other red flags in particular with this case. First, if anybody guaranteed high returns, by its very nature, investing carries risk. If anyone says they're guaranteed high percentage profits with no risk, they're lying. Stop it. Sus. If they're not transparent, Zimbardi's program was allegedly built on a secret or proprietary trading bot. Legitimate investment opportunities can explain their strategies, and if their answer is some secret formula or some restricted bot, run. Thirdly, look for the registration. In the U.S., individuals and companies offering investment services are typically registered with the CFTC or the SEC. You can look at that up online, and it's free. If they're not registered, that's a major warning sign. Again, run. The age-old advice is more relevant to this time. If it sounds too good to be true, it absolutely is. In this particular case with Mr. Zimbardi, will more than likely move through the Georgia court system, and I'll actually be watching the updates, if any, on this case and similar cases as it unfolds. And I'm hoping victims in this case can find some measure of justice. And also, this is basically a warning or a cautionary tale to anybody that's out there. It's great to want to make money, but again, if it sounds too good to be true, whatever you do in the dark is going to come to the light, and usually it's illegal. And they're not only you're going to lose your money and lose your shirt, but they're also, if you any of the benefits that you actually had above what your original investment is, it's called clawback. The government can also seek restitution because it was ill-gotten gains. They're going to basically, anything that they can basically strip from Mr. Zimbardi, they're going to get their scratch. And you're not going to be made whole on what you actually initially invested. You may only get cents on the dollars. And if they deem that you made anything above what your investment was, oh child, they're going to take that and then some with interest, because how long it's been going on. As I said, the News 2 in Georgia actually got hip to this back in 2022, 2023. And then the case actually finally was filed just this year. And they've been looking for him for a while. He basically was dumping and having false stories planted to basically get Canada and the other European authorities off his jock, because he said he was all these legitimate things and it was all false stories. So with that said, he could have just ran for president and won and basically got immunity, but he didn't. So therefore, the SEC, feds, as well as state authorities are coming for his ass. And I hope they shut him down. And hopefully he wasn't the same dude or in league with the same ring of dudes that basically reached out to me on TikTok, because you need to get out my face with that mess. And this is an inch eye, private eye in this market watch minute. This is what I'm also going to probably call this segment too. And look out for details of the actually AI generated video for more details and any updates on this story and any other stories like it on YouTube and on my personal YouTube channel and wherever you listen to podcasts. Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. So take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow. I can go anywhere. Ways to know and ways to grow, a temporal rainbow. I can be anything. So take a look, it's in a book, a tenfold rainbow. A tenfold rainbow. A tenfold rainbow. Do you know how lazy you actually have to be to figure out and use AI to create a script for this part of the episode? A reading 10 fro. Look here, I know I started this podcast specifically to entertain myself and talk about reading books, but sometimes it can just take a minute for me to get through the books. That's why I found with trying to slog through Stephen King's Holly. First, I've been a Stephen King fan since the 3rd, 4th grade. I did not and still don't understand why Newtown Road in the 70s had Salem's Lot as well as Firestarter by Stephen King in the elementary school library, as well as Roots, because I read all of those between the 4th and 5th grade. But I digress. Recently, I went back to Holly because I had started reading. I bought that book at the beginning of the year or the end of last year, maybe. And it took me a minute to get into it. And then I got to the last section where Holly Gibney is getting closer to figuring out the Harrises and who was actually responsible for the disappearance and the murders of several people, not just Bonnie Dial. But my cousin and I have basically said this. Stephen King, although he hates Trump, he is a man of the 50s and 60s. And he's a liberal to a certain extent, but his initial books like Firestarter were rife with misogyny and just kind of pedophilia, but I digress. And he also used the language of the time, the racist language of the time. Once you get through all of that, he uses some some intense images to portray the stupidity of the murderers, in this case, the cannibalistic Harrises, who seem to be innocuous enough, old school professors living in a Victorian house up on a hill of a dying town, and they are basically contributing to the death of this town by eating its members. Isn't that apropos? Killing people faster than COVID. But I digress. AI basically gave a great summary of this, which I've put together. But I also realized that, and because I had been told that the algorithms in AI themselves, until they're trained, they don't even you can get AI to read your script. And I had to figure out that I couldn't get the reading voice or speech to or text to speech voice to change in Google. So I put the summary actually in my Max notes, and then changed the voice. And the closest they had to somebody that's kind of sounds like me and that doesn't sound too robotic is a homegirl. I think, is her name Holly? Holly from South Africa. That's the closest I could get to somebody that does not sound like Karen from the Northeast. But with that said, here's my first completely AI generated summary of Stephen King's Holly, read for you in South African English on my computer, and I hope you enjoy this section as much as I have enjoyed creating it.
For those of you who followed King's work for a while, the name Holly Gibney will be very familiar. She first appeared as an unlikely partner to retired Detective Bill Hodges in the Mr. Mercedes trilogy. She's quirky, brilliant, and has evolved from a shy, anxious woman into a full-fledged private investigator with her own agency, Finders Keepers. In Holly, she takes center stage, and this time, the case is deeply personal and terrifyingly strange. The story kicks off in 2021, and Holly is juggling a few things. She's dealing with the recent death of her mother, a woman who was controlling and difficult right up to the end. She's also navigating the pandemic, which King weaves into the narrative in a very real, very human way. But the main event begins with a phone call. An elderly woman, Penny Dahl, contacts Holly about her missing daughter, Bonnie. Bonnie disappeared from her home a few weeks prior, and the police have basically given up. They think she's a runaway, a young woman who just wanted to get away from her overbearing mother. But Penny knows her daughter, and she knows something is wrong. Holly, driven by her own unique sense of justice and a gut feeling that Penny is right, takes the case. The trail leads her to a quiet, seemingly respectable couple, Professors Rodney and Emily Harris. They are both octogenarians, brilliant in their fields, and live in a pristine, beautiful home. But as Holly starts to dig, she finds that Bonnie isn't the only person who's gone missing in their neighborhood over the past few years. There's a whole string of disappearances that the police have written off as isolated incidents. Holly is investigating the disappearance of Bonnie Dahl, a case the police have written off. But Holly's meticulous nature and sharp intuition tell her there's something far more sinister at play. Her investigation is a slow, painstaking process of connecting seemingly unrelated dots. First, Holly notices a pattern. Bonnie isn't the only one missing in the area. She uncovers other disappearances over the years, individuals like George Castro, Carrie Dressler, Ellen Kraslow, and Peter Stinky Steinman. What links them? They all vanished near Deerfield Park or the Bell College campus, and in each case, there's little to no evidence, just abandoned personal items, suggesting they didn't just walk away. Holly's rigorous detective work led her to the seemingly innocuous, elderly couple, Professors Rodney and Emily Harris. They're retired academics, highly respected, and live in a beautiful Victorian home. On the surface, they're above suspicion. But as Holly digs, their names keep surfacing in the periphery of these missing persons cases. The connections are subtle, almost imperceptible to anyone less observant than Holly. The chilling truth begins to emerge through a dual narrative that King employs, revealing the Harrises' perspective to the reader even as Holly is still piecing it together. We learn that the seemingly frail couple are actually serial killers and cannibals. Their horrifying belief is that consuming human flesh, particularly the liver and brain, has rejuvenating powers that can combat their own aging and ailments. Their method is truly disturbing. They meticulously research potential victims who are isolated, estranged from family, or have no strong social ties, making their disappearances less likely to be investigated thoroughly. They use a disability van and a wheelchair used to lure and overpower their targets, often under the guise of needing help. Once captured, victims are imprisoned in a hidden basement cage, forced to endure horrifying conditions, and eventually, murdered and consumed. Their bodies are then disposed of using a wood chipper in the basement, with remains scattered to avoid detection. Holly, driven by her obsessive attention to detail and a growing sense of dread, pushes past the initial disbelief that such a seemingly harmless couple could be capable of such monstrous acts. She focuses on the recurring elements, the geographical proximity of the disappearances, the lack of struggle or evidence, and the subtle connections to the Harrises. Her instincts scream that the Harrises are involved, despite their advanced age and respectable facade. The breakthrough for Holly comes when she decides to sneak into the Harrises' home, looking for that crucial piece of evidence, specifically, the disability van she suspects they used. It's a high-stakes gamble, driven by her unwavering dedication to the victims and her refusal to let the case go cold. Unfortunately for Holly, her infiltration led to her capture. She's subdued by Rodney with a taser and imprisoned in the very same basement cage where the Harrises held their other victims. It's a terrifying moment, where Holly finds herself in the same horrific predicament as Bonnie and the others. But even in captivity, Holly's sharp mind is working. She finds Bonnie's other earring hidden in her cage, a tiny, crucial piece of confirmation that Bonnie was indeed there. In a desperate, climactic struggle, Holly uses her quick wit and the small earring to her advantage. She goads the increasingly senile Rodney Harris into approaching her cage and, with a swift move, manages to slit his throat with the earring. When an enraged Emily Harris discovers her husband's body and comes down to kill Holly with Holly's own revolver, Holly, with surprising strength and cunning, manages to reach through the bars and snap Emily's neck. Just as Holly escapes this horrific ordeal, the sister of her business partner, Barbara Robinson, who has been connecting the dots from afar, arrives with the authorities, having figured out Holly's likely whereabouts. The Harrises' reign of terror is finally over, and the horrifying truth of their cannibalistic plot is exposed to the world. Now, this is where King's genius for building dread really shines. The Harrises appear harmless, even frail. But Holly's meticulous investigation starts to uncover sinister details. The novel is a slow burn, a masterclass in suspense. It's not just about what happened, but how it happened, and the terrifying psychology behind it. King uses a dual narrative, giving us Holly's perspective as she inches closer to the truth, and then showing us the perspective of the villains themselves, the Herizers. And let me tell you, their motivations are some of the most chilling King has ever created. It's a brand of evil that feels both monstrous and eerily mundane. King tackles some big themes here. There's the idea of evil hiding in plain sight, the loneliness of old age, and the lengths people will go to for, well, I can't say more without giving it away. But it's a commentary on the dark side of humanity that feels incredibly relevant today. What makes Holly so great is the character herself. This is her story, and King gives her room to grow, to be vulnerable, to be brave, and to really find her own strength. It's a detective story, yes, but it's also a deep character study of one of King's most beloved creations. So, if you're a fan of psychological thrillers, if you love a good detective story with a horror twist, or if you've been a long-time fan of Holly Gibney and want to see her in her element, then Holly is an absolute must-read. It's a compelling, unsettling, and ultimately satisfying read that proves Stephen King is still the master of the macabre. That's the chilling conclusion of how Holly Gibney uncovers the gruesome truth in Stephen King's Holly. Join us next time on A Reading F.A.A.F.O as we explore the themes of Octavia Butler Parable of Trickster, her unfinished third book of her Earthsea trilogy.
For a messy bunch, the shady bunch, the shady bunch. I hope Fraternal Checks is working part of the shady bunch. I hate to start off the beginning of this section of the show, the Shady Bunch, my roundup of reality TV. This is just more of news, cultural news. Shannon Sharpe basically settles his case with that only 19-year-old OnlyFans for like $23 million. He only made $21 million from what I heard from the reports in his entire NFL career. Basically, his deal with, I don't know if it was Sirius or some other podcast network, imploded. He basically pulverized generational wealth for some ass. He should have just listened to Monique. But anyways, and he and Ocho Cinco are getting sued for another $20 million for sexual assault or harassment of somebody else associated with that dumbass podcast that they have. Child. He was, what's his name? Monique tried to warn him. Cat William tried to warn him. He just too stupid, or his CTS basically got in his way of his bag. He basically shot the bed. So anyways, on to reality with the King and other points in reality TV. I noticed I comment on several podcasts that are much, much more downloaded, much, much more listened to, that have a broader reach than my own little podcast. Carlos King is my spirit animal. He cracks me up because, as it seems to me, and this is shady, I know, I don't care. As his beard gets bushier, his hairline seems to be retreating. I know he's always had a prominent forehead. It just looks like his hairline is just going further and further back. But he's always has a fresh lineup every time we see the video of his Monday night, or is now his Tuesday night live with Claudia Jordan and Dustin Ross. He is so different. I like Richie Sky, but I like the format of Reality with the King, the Monday Night Live, as they were recapping the 16th season of Real Housewives of Atlanta. He's a producer. He knows the game. It is amazing that they're able and will be recapping. And his perspective as a super fan and as a producer, he's very, very careful because he's always professional. He basically says he loves all the girls, but he basically calls them as he sees them. People feel safe when they are interviewed by him. And to get his perspective on things, I don't really watch the show or listen to that podcast until I've actually seen whatever show he's talking about. Or through Claudia Jordan and Dustin, they basically kind of point me to shows that I am going to be able to talk about and come up with my own perspective, because then I'll have to rewatch it again to make sure I didn't miss anything, because most of the time I watch and listen to his podcast for entertainment purposes, and now that he comes on like every single day, I actually I could pick and choose which one I want to listen to. Like, I'm going to have to listen to his recap of this past week of Real Housewives of the OC, because he brings back Alexis Bellino on again after she basically was she's not even on that show anymore. And she basically was she threw Katie a lifeline, and this also, but she's out there on her own, and it evidently explains why she goes MIA mid-season. She basically has made an enemy of all the women on that cast for this season because she keeps getting caught in half-truths and outright lies. And even one of the Jesus jugs that Alexis Bellino, who's not even on the show anymore, she can't even give her a lifeline because she basically, again, shot the bed. So I only am going to continue to watch that because of the recaps are hilarious. And there's not a whole bunch going on YouTube TV right now. But just listening to her, I kind of listened to her go off. And I call them big bubble lip women, push food around on their plate and don't eat anything, look like they OD'd on Wegovy or Ozempic. I don't have time for that. I don't really have time to watch any of that on my screen because they can't tell me that nobody thinks Heather Dubrow's skeletal breast line is sexy and her little chicken legs. That does not look hot. She needs to eat and be put on a safe weight because the size that she is crazy. And that's all I got to say on that. But I want to discuss, more importantly, the last episode of The Real Housewives of Atlanta Part 3 reunion actually aired last week. And I do got some pointers, more so not as extended as the Tuesday Night Live with Carlos and them. But I got some perspective. It ended up being what happened online like the next day after the episode airs was more interesting than the episode itself. Evidently, Shamia Mwangi, they said she kind of crashed out, but I don't think she really did. I think if you had listened to and dissected what she was singing at the beginning, was how, and she's told us she uses song to cope and also to express herself. And she basically, and even though it's too late because Portia wouldn't let her get a word in edgewise, and the other screeching from the other end of the couch, she got to express herself uninterrupted. If the same thing had been done by Phaedra with the prayers and the singing, that would have seemed more performative and hokey to me. If Phaedra had done it, but the prayer was too long. You can't sleep on Shamia Mwangi, because not too long after that aired on her YouTube channel, Shamia Morton, there's another episode where she's showing her family and her oldest daughter and her youngest daughter who has disabilities in Kenya at the Giraffe Manor. How you gonna have a mansion with your own personal servants and all these giraffes? You get to feed the giraffes on a swing. Y'all looking stellar in your Louis Vuitton and Chanel. It's so dope. And this is how she rolls. It would have been great to see more of that because her family, including Gerald, her husband, were there. And it showed opulence, it showed wealth, and it showed her in her own element, looking great, healthy. Her hair was did and all that heat. I thought it was done. I thought it was just dope. But I don't know, because the American audience for reality TV, and especially in Atlanta, is fickle. Because there was really no drama, that would have never made it to air. But that's what we kind of want to see. It's like you want to see, they only have a certain amount of episode and a certain amount of time per episode, but they would not have shown that. And why not? Do you only want to see the dark drama? Do you only want to see the actual crash out? No. You want to see a nice balance of it, and that would have been really nice to see, because it wasn't performative, it wasn't stupid, and it wasn't just for the camera. This is her actual life. She would have looked regal, she would have looked proud, and she had the backing of her family, including her husband. I think that would have been dope. Angela Oakley, she's a part of the We Do Not Care Club, and I am here for it. Kenya Moore actually has not gotten the official go-ahead to return to season 17, and she also let it ride out in her live on her channel that there are going to be 2 new additions, which seems to be K. Michelle and Pinky Cole. I don't really know who Pinky Cole is. I am not vegan. I love pork too much. I would have liked her Jamaican restaurant before she actually transitioned over to the more successful Slutty Vegan franchise. But I do know K. Michelle, and she's a more elevated version of herself, according to Carlos King, versus her time on Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, New York, and Miami. So I'm here for that. Portia, I've seen, she's actually in everything. Traders. She has something else coming out on Lifetime. She has all this stuff. She's also have these product endorsements. I ain't mad at her. Girl, get your bag. And what I wanted to also kind of just break down on is how Jackie Christie basically looked like she came at her daughter, Chantel Christie, with the fierceness. If you don't watch Basketball Wives, you haven't really missed anything. I'll get you caught up. Like if you stop watching General Hospital, All My Children in the 70s. It takes one episode or a little look up on Google and you can get caught up on what's going on in today in Apartment 3D. But in the last couple of years, I fully admit I have not watched Basketball Wives at all. I did watch them when they first came on, when they were still in the Miami version of it. When Shaq, Dwayne Wade, Birdman, Lonzo Mourning all played for the Heat. I had started going down to Miami after I was in one of my classmates in medical school's wedding. I've had some freaky good times in Florida, in Miami in particular. I went to Evelyn Lozada's shop. She's one of the OG cast members on this iteration of the combined Basketball Wives. I think she had that store a little bit prior and maybe not too long after she was in a relationship with Ocho Cinco that I talked about at the top of the show in South Beach. I bought these ugly ass gold shoes, clear wedges. I'm like, these are old lady stripper shoes. Girl, bye. I know I spent somewhere between 90 and $100 on those shoes, which I ended up taking to Goodwill or just throwing away because they were so ugly and nobody ain't gonna wear those shoes. But I digress. And then I got busy not too long after that. I got busy where Basketball Wife wasn't on my must-watch TV. It wasn't really my thing, even in the last few years. Literally, it wasn't until while you jip jiving, I didn't get into the Real Housewives, and in particular, Housewives of Atlanta, until the pandemic. And I was like, well, okay, what did I miss? Because I would hear about Real Housewives on, not Reality with the King, but that too. But also how Kid Fury on The Read would only watch the reunions. So I went back and not only started at season 1, because to me, season 1 through 3 was trash. But actually after that, when they added Kenya and Portia, it became a thing. And it wasn't until I listened to Reality with the King with Carlos and Dustin this week where I found out about this big blow up between Jackie and her daughter Chantel. So, and just to get caught up on Basketball Wives, now Shoni, who is one of the OGs, she's married to a minister. When I used to watch it, I think she was either married to or had just recently separated from Shaq. Jennifer, who was her husband, I think played for the Heat or one of those, she gets divorced, she gets scammed, and then she marries a scammer. Tammy was in the previous iterations, and she was one that not only did Evelyn Lozado cheat on have an affair with Tammy Roman's ex-husband, they were on a show together, and I think they actually got into one of them cat fights. Talk about flipping the table, just saying. And then there's Jackie Christie, who was of Basketball Wives LA fame. She has been an OG, known to be messy, and would give the girls a run for her money. Her daughter has been on the show and has multiple appearances on her show from previous seasons, but she became a full-time basketball wife this season. And then they have this major blow up. And then I was like, I got really confused because I felt that it was more because I saw just the clip of the blow up itself because they talked about it online. People may have all these comments, but I'm like, we only see a certain portion of these people's life. It's reality TV, but we don't see what is led up to that. This is one of there was a live that Carlos King said he was contacted by Chantal Christie, and he basically flew out to wherever she was, met her where she was, and they had this wonderful talk. I'll actually drop the link of the discussion in my the notes, not necessarily for the podcast, but if you navigate to my Dell's Angels Inc. blog site, you'll actually be able to click on the link for their YouTube, the clip of his discussion with her. And she basically was able to give her part of the story. She took full accountability to the why of it all and what really truly led up with that. First is the admission that both of them were wrong. She should have never pushed her mom. Jackie should never have swung on her like she was just a bitch in the street. I think both of them are damaged. I think Chantal came in trying to see what they could resolve in their relationship now as an adult. And her intention seemed to be she was going to use that girl for a storyline or as backup while Jackie Christie harassed her other castmates. They made a comment where psychologists say that sometimes the mother is the daughter's first bully, and all of that was proven in the interactions that they've had that led up to this horrible interaction. She basically made a bunch of points as far as she took full accountability because she now is able to verbalize what she needed from her mother. What she needed from her mother was her presence and emotional support, more so than material things when she was little. She also needed to gain her mother's respect as an adult and not being used as a prop. And for her own, like an emotional support animal for her mother, irrespective of her, that means Chantal's feelings. She said her mother ruled by fear. She never ruled and ever gained her true respect because that looks differently. She knows what that is. She respects and respected her grandmother while she was alive because she was primarily responsible for her bringing her up because Jackie Christie was out chasing her husband while he played in the league. She had hustle. She made sure the kids were taken care of from a material standpoint, but she was not emotionally there. She also recognized, this is Chantal recognized, that her mother did not have the emotional tools to be able to emotionally support. It seems like Jackie Christie is the type of person to think just because she gave her kids everything that their father's income could ever give them, and it was a great life. Chantal actually admits that too. But how much richer would it have been if they could have had a mother that had the emotional intelligence to be there, not only in the physical sense and given them those riches, but how much more would it have been and well-rounded if she didn't treat them like ornaments and didn't treat them as some type of superficiality. She just didn't have the tools to be able to support her Chantal like that. I didn't know that Jackie Christie's or Chantal's oldest sister, they have two different fathers. And definitely there was a difference in how Jackie treated the oldest daughter, as well as the two children born by the relationship Jackie had with Chantal's father, her brother, she and her brother. There's a colorism issue, but She basically said that in essence, her sister said there was a difference because I was looking at the episode, and Chantal is a beautiful woman, and she also looks like a younger version of her mother. She's also very fair skinned. So there's a colorism issue. Um, we don't know what happened in that family's life. She didn't comment on it because basically her oldest sisters basically said, keep my name out your MFing mouth. But because they don't get along either. And I suspect that Jackie may have pitted them against each other. And it looks like she probably did by making her run on the treadmill and having Chantal time the oldest, darker daughter, who was also very curvy and round. If she did all that crap, that's horrible. Their experiences, although different, they lived in the same house, but they seem to have had some very horrific and uh, emotionally abusive and verbally abusive instances with their mother. Because Jackie Christie seems to be messy on this show, but it just seems like she's not emotionally intelligent. She's a manipulator, she's well spoken, but she's also a very selfish person. I can see her pitting her kids against each other and also keeping them away. She basically produced kids because she was expected to do that, but she didn't know how to really mother them. She gave them things to basically keep them quiet. You know what I mean? They were ornaments on her life, but she craved and needed to selfishly have the attention of, for all intents and purposes, a man that seems to be a really good guy. She wanted to be the only and the main focus of that relationship and motherhood and even being a good daughter without being verbally and emotionally abusive. Jackie Christie didn't seem to be able to do that. This is from the perspective of Chantal Christie. And I'm not going to say that and sit here and act like I know these people. I hardly watch the show. I told you, I have not watched this show since the early 2000s. So I don't know if any of this is true. I'm basically just coming up on my perception of what was verbalized in this very lengthy and very intriguing interview between Carlos King and Chantal Christie. But the division of them seems to be complete. It seems like Chantal is taking this time to heal, and she has not spoken to her mother since the actual incident happened, which was over 7-8 months ago. She's been checked on by her actual friends from the show, but that's about it. They said that Shawnee contacted her, one of the executive producers of the show, contacted her not too long after the incident did take place about half a year ago, but she's not really friends with her. It was like the boss checking up on the people. We know that they're not having a reunion because they would have taped it by now. It was already announced not too long after that episode aired that there will not be a reunion because this is so much how the relationship between a mother and daughter are just fractured. Chantal did have some great points. Jackie Christie, she was saying some crazy stuff, but her mother and parents are still actually married. There is no evidence, and she had no right to speak on it, that her father is going to actually leave Jackie Christie. He's not going to. There's no evidence of that. And there is no evidence that they were going to ask Chantal Christie back, or even if she would go back, if her mother is actually there. We've also seen that shows have been put on pause, that if people actually refuse to film together, cue Real Housewives of New Jersey, cue Real Housewives of New York. They can do a reboot but they can completely reboot the cast, and then they can bring back a whole bunch of newbies that are not friends. They're not going to do that because although she's messy and she is an emotional tyrant, I don't think they won't bring back Jackie Christie, but they are not going to bring her back at the expense of her daughter if there's no resolution, because if they won't film together. Wrong is wrong and right is right. It would have been great if they could have talked through some of this stuff individually and then had somebody with some sense like Dr. Ken actually guide them through a real multiple sessions, but I can't see someone like Jackie Christie who always thinks she's right, and she's going to try to figure it out on her own, and she does not listen to people because she don't process stuff like everybody else does. And I'm wondering if she would be amenable to that, but I think it is obvious because of that particular interaction. It goes so much deeper than the little picking and the nonsense that happened in this all through this season. Again, Chantal came in that thought she was going to finally get the respect and be shown respect from her mother, and try to heal as the cameras are rolling, the reality of their already strained relationship. She thought that's what she came on the show thinking that they were going to do, and in reality, she was going to be used for a storyline. She was supposed to be one of a mini Jackie, and she was supposed to just go in and give those girls hell, but she was not. And she did not know or was not prepared to be used as a storyline as such, because the things like the custody battle that Chantal is having with one of her baby daddies, that's salacious fodder for the tabloids, the blogs, as well as a storyline on a messy show like Basketball Wives. They both were wrong in their reactions to each other. From what I understand, Chantal, in her perception of Jackie, shouldn't have touched her while she was already amped up. She should never have pushed her mom, and then Jackie should have never swung on her. But they were already to a point of no return, even right before that. Long before that interaction in a hotel room in Hawaii. They were, and they should have done the work separately instead of one of them, because it sounds like, or at least she sounded like she had done some of the psychological work. And then before they had come together on a show like Basketball Wives, thinking that she, who has never had a pattern of behavior where she respects anybody's feelings, she doesn't know any boundaries, and especially, or any other female adult. It seems like she just sees them as competition to the limelight. And so she basically treated her own daughter as such. The thing that makes Jackie Christie such a compelling reality star is what also makes her a horrible mother, because there seems to be no boundary between the two. Then there's Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, and it seems like everybody hates Yandy. It reminds me of Love and Hip Hop New York, because there was a time when Mendeecees' baby mama, or both of the baby mama and his mama, basically was always player hating the PR Yandy Smith. She actually can sit in judgment and manipulate everyone else while her house was crashing and burning. Basically, Mendeecees got caught in somebody's DMs with some sexually explicit text that may have been backed up by reality. He may have been just cheating on his wife and running out on his family, just like Kirk Frost did on Rashida. But the hilarious part of it, she was going to them off camera, the Frost off camera, while she was trying to paint this perfect picture and playing up, being performative, self-producing for the cameras. She and talking smack about the Frost when her reality was very, very similar to Kurt's. And they both got tired of it and they roasted her again on Carlos King's show. And Mendici's like, we've already dealt with this. I'm not going to talk about this. But she says, bitch, you're going to have to talk about this because I'm getting dragged now. And he's like, bitch, I don't care. I've already talked about it. I'm not going to talk about this. He just looks so dejected and over it. And she looks dejected and over it because he is stubborn and he will not allow her to self-produce him to get the reaction he needs to save her ass. And that, to me, is concerning. And although I think that bucktooth girl, horsey girl, Little Scrappy's ex-wife, and the other gay, what is his name? Stylist may be onto something. I think her reality is a lot messier and than they can even come up with. And her house literally is burning down. It makes me sad, but this is what you get when you try to be performative and try to cover up and so much. And people see Atlanta is a large city, but it truly is a big country town. And people run in the same circles. I think Mendici may be community dick. And anybody, because they's on this show, people gonna talk and you gonna get dragged. And it looks crazy and messy that you won't even defend and say yes. Acknowledge, say something to them. Yes, this is what really was going on. We dealt with it off camera. And we shouldn't have talked about you. Where can we go from here and to move on? But this dragging and him not and looking crazy and not looking supportive, and she's getting the brunt, it's just crazy. Why did you sign up for the show? People can say whatever they want to, because if your name is on that contract, you better show and prove or get written off. Because it's sounding like it's getting to the point where she's not getting invited to stuff and none of the other castmates will film with her because they have such a big beef and you cannot afford that. Again, you get put on pause or your contract is canceled. Carly Red's face said it all. She was going off and how the daughter should be there to support her and blah, blah, blah. It was very performative. And so, and even somebody as performative and messy as Carly Red clocked it. And her face said what I was thinking. Girl, stop it. I want my daughter. But once she did speak to her daughter and explain to her everything that she had been going through from the domestic battery issues and what was truly going on in her household before she actually had her marriage. This is Carly Red's marriage. I think that's wild too. Even before she had her current marriage annulled, Carly Red said something that was really consulting. She basically depended on her daughter, and her daughter was like, I got my own family now. I got my own daughter. I can't really be there for you. But when Carly Red explained to her the depths of what she was going through and how she can't trust anybody, even though she had Yandy Smith there trying to put a battery in her back about her daughter's lack of support, it made sense that she don't even have allies on this show. And she doesn't have any friends, deep friends, anybody that she can trust with that information to, because she hadn't been going through all of that. and nobody was there. Spice, Sierra, Rashida, nobody was there. And Yandy only probably showed up because nobody else would film with her, and she could not get a scene in to get her check. So, with that said, I think, and this is just me, there's a lot of loose ends and a lot of compelling storylines and a lot of mess. But it seems like there are certain OG casts on this particular show that are in trouble of getting cut because they are reading the comments, they're performing for the cameras to collect a check, but where are the real friendships? We are seeing a demise of a lot of real friendships. I don't see anybody going hard for each other like Rashida and this is Candy Burris. They are real friends in real life, and they're performers. Or Mimi and K. Michelle. I don't see that in anybody on this show out of Carly Red and her actual daughter, who also is a very gorgeous woman. What is her name in her whacked raps? And I really did like Spice and Carly Red, but that alliance was broken when Carly Red was in all her mess. So, and then it's compelling. Sierra's actually married. Her husband doesn't seem to be in for camera time either. And she says she's actually pregnant. But I don't know what the end game is in all those injections and fillers that she's gotten, how that is going to actually how all of that and her pregnancy and the success of her pregnancy is going to work out. Her mother still seems to have a substance issue. And again, that the mother being the first bully of her daughter, how she put Sierra out when she was 15 and wouldn't allow the girl to even call her grandmother, and she wants to take the limelight, and she wants to have all of this respect when she doesn't do anything. She basically want to say, oh, and I knew she was drunk or something, because she was like, I just still need to make sure that he's the right one for you. It's already too late. They married and they having a kid. What are you talking about? Why can't you just be happy for her and support her? Why do you always have to put your mouth on her? What is that? And what mother does that outside of Love and Hip Hop Atlanta and Basketball Wives? Girl, y'all messy. I hope y'all get it straight. And there's always more to a story than the 40-minute clips we're actually seeing on TV. I do realize that too. You can take the girl out of the hood, but you can't take hood music out the girl. But I'm going to end this with a word, just as I started this podcast. Do or do not do. There is no try. And that's a word from Yoda. I hope I have conveyed just how much fun I have had in creating this podcast. I've got my mojo back. Just set your intention or reset your intention. It could be daily if necessary. Mine is peace. No mental dumping over here. If I'm acting like I'm not listening, I'm probably not. I'm not your therapist. I'm not a therapist. Keep the crazy to yourself, child. You do you and leave me be. The sooner you figure that ish out, the happy you will be. So this is what I want to convey in this podcast. And that wraps another of F.A.A.F.O has a fro. Join me next time as I throw shade and point out the shade and simply have fun. Y'all have a great new year. Ah, 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 What? What, y'all? What?